Hey guys, welcome to the studio. Glad you're here. We're going to go over some interesting new ways to think about putting a chord down that's going to sound a lot more colorful than what we've seen so far. The same way that we kind of approach it for maybe a jazz chord or an R&B chord, and there's a lot of paths we can go down. I'm going to show you one way to look at it where you don't need to know really anything about how anything works. Really just by moving one finger. If you've watched our previous videos, play 3 notes and here's how you make a song, that's a good place to start for the basics. And then we had a follow-up video which was to get more colorful by moving one finger. This is a follow-up on that where we're going to take those ideas one step further. You didn't need any music theory to be able to find those. This is going to work the same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it right over to that screen in 1 second. And here's the piano. Aha, there I am. And yeah, we got everything going on here, which is cool. All right. So what we saw up to last time was we were playing 3 notes at a time. This is what we learned in our first video. By the second video, we learned that the middle note can be kind of moved around, either up or down. And if you're unsure what the rules are to that, you have to watch out for doing certain things, but you can generally get away with it. And you should be with me. Okay, so here we're on to the new thing. The new thing is, we had talked about what our left hand normally does underneath one of these chords. So we're using the same chord to start. This is looking at the group of 3 black keys, find the center key, look just to the right of it, and play every other white key. And this happens to be based on A, and we call this chord A minor. And my left hand should be doing something similar down here, center key to the right. And that means this should match with this. Okay, here's today's trick. Well, the same way that we kind of build a chord by going up every other white key, the left hand has this thing where if you know where to start it, you can kind of make a jump downwards in the same distance, skipping over one white key, going from here to land here, and the chord just got a lot more depth to it. Let's see that again. So A minor chord, and I'm going to skip down, skip over a white key, and I got this cool new chord. Let's try it on the next chord that we had in the progression, which was actually was F, and then I'm going to do that, skip a white key and go down, and listen to this chord. Cool, right? The third chord we used in our progression was here. This is C. We're going to use the same trick here. I'm going to bring my left hand down with a target here. A little bit more interesting than this. Now you have this. And final chord, which would normally have been this. Again, targeting here, and now we have this. Okay. So let's listen to how that might go if I do those moves as I'm playing. Like, okay, now that was me actually making the move each time. Once I know where everything is, though, I can just kind of skip the normal first note here and just lead with this kind of a little bit outlandish one. That would sound more like this. A lot more interesting than just the plain old chords. Okay, this is where things start getting kind of super cool. if you decide to use this technique and you also watch the video on moving the center note of the chord, it becomes like a complete flavor zone for this. Let's take a look at the what we did in the second video, which is take the center note, and to be on the safe side, we're just going to always go down with it. But what if I now move the left hand the way we've been talking about today? Ooh. Well, I can start with the chord normal and kind of head towards that, like, ooh, that's pretty rich. We're going to do the same thing on the next chord. Ooh. That's kind of cool. Same thing on the new chord, third chord. And also for the fourth chord. And so that's just a combination of the two techniques. The technique from the second video, move the middle note down. You can also move it up. We talked about sometimes you need to be a little cautious with that. And sneak the left hand down by, skipping one white key and going down with it. You could do that with zero music theory. But as always, I do like to share with you what it was that you just did. Well, the left hand is actually the note that controls what the chord is, oddly. So I need to look at it kind of like this. Let's say that I know this first chord was A minor. And when I decide to put an A underneath it with the left hand, well, it's still an A minor chord. I'm just kind of supporting it a little bit differently. As soon as I decide to move the left hand, there's a very good chance that the chord itself actually changed. Now, my right hand didn't alter at all. And is it on an A minor chord? It's playing the notes from an A minor chord, but this F kind of takes control over it. Here's why. I'm playing the F down here, but let me sneak this F up to an F that's a little bit closer to the actual chord up here, right here. So I'm going to stop playing this F. I'm going to look at it here. Here's how that worked. I'm now looking at four notes here. Top three is an A minor, and I do have an F underneath it. Well, really, we would probably look at it not as an A minor being played over an F, but rather, if I get rid of this top note here for a second, look what's left over. It's an F chord. Well, if you remember back to our first video, there was a little theory at the end of that, and we kind of described there's like a 5-note cluster here at any given moment, that I can say that the chord itself is made of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The chord is made of the 1, the 3, and the 5. It loves odd numbers. And so when I look up here, this is a type of 7. And 7s do come in a couple different variations. We're not going to concern ourselves over what variation of it is, but I can see this is a 1, that's a 3, that's a 5, and that's a 7. And so this is a type of chord really based on an F now. This particular chord happens to be called F major 7th. F major 7th because it's an F chord, and the type of 7th above it we would call a major 7th. So F major 7th. Well, what about that second chord that we had here? Cool chord. And I could see that the chord itself, if I choose to call it something, it's an F, and my left hand's down here on a D because we went down that far with it. Let me move the D up and we'll take a look at it here instead. Well, yeah, it's an F chord, but really the D kind of wins because, again, if I get rid of this high note, this chord is actually a D minor. And again, I have 1, 3, 5, and 7. So this chord becomes a D minor 7 chord. Now, there's a little bit of a hiccup as to what do you call each particular 7th. And if you're interested in theory, there's some great tutorials, some great videos on that. My job is to kind of more show you what you can do without getting too nutty into the theory. But these were all types of 7 chords being named for what the left hand was doing, which kind of overwhelmed whatever we saw the right hand is doing. So this A minor chord, when we moved the bass down, it became an F chord. This was F major 7th. the F chord with a D under it became a type of D minor seventh. What was a C chord actually gets named for the A now. This is A minor seventh. And for the grand finale chord, it looks like a G, but this is an E. And so the chord is really based on the E, and this is E minor 7. So you heard the number 7 come up in the names of all these chords. And again, it doesn't hurt you to be able to properly name what type of seventh they are in a particular chord. But for right now, let's make some cool chords, and now you know what a 7 really is. It's when a 1, a 3, and a 5 chord has an additional note on top of it, and there's a little bit of flexibility in that. When you decide to do both techniques at once, this is where you're going to run into some real weird names. I'm not going to even start naming this stuff for you. But let's say I did that thing where I moved the center note down. Kind of cool, right? Okay, so now we've seen how to build chords, how to move that center note around, which we call a suspension, and how to move the left hand like a little bit farther down than we think it should go. And that kind of paints the whole chord into a brand new light. And if I do both at once, wow, you can really get some kind of cool stuff. That's how we explain it in music theory, but a lot of times it's just a lot easier to see it. And remember, the lessons are keep your ears open. Maybe you'll hear something weird and new and different and interesting other than what I'm showing you. And remember where it is. And maybe write it down if you're forgetful, or make sure that you record it. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it's helpful. I appreciate you coming. And I'll see you guys soon.